right, welcome to another Deal Structure Sunday with myself and Mr. Link Irvin from North Carolina. Link, welcome, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
You bet. No stranger to these, so we'll have some fun. But this is a little different, not in the 3 paydays that we're going to go over, you and I, and we'll kind of work our way through it because Nick sold it. But it's different in that this wasn't from an associate. I'm saying this on the Deal Structure Sunday. So if anyone's out there and they watch our videos and they're like, you know what, I never was an associate, or I can't afford to be an associate, but on occasion I run across deals. This is how this deal came to us. Link tends to head up anything for that entity that a deal comes in from a student. We pay a nice referral fee and Link handles it. So you get coached through the process in that you're the boots on the ground. Like, we're not in all these markets. And this deal's where Link, Colorado?
Yeah, Denver, one of the Denver suburbs, Parker, Colorado.
Okay, we're not there. I'm not there. Link's not there. But the student who brought this was, and they're not an associate. So if that gets your wheels turning out there, you're welcome to bring us deals. You'll make a whole bunch more if and when you decide to come in, get trained, and do the deal yourself. But in the meantime, don't throw deals away. Right, Link?
Yeah, it's better than that. It's certainly better than throwing deals away, Chris.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's do this. As I said, for the fairness to the viewer, deal with me and Link muddling our way through this because he was kind of dealing the boots in the ground. Nick sold it, and we're working on the numbers out here, but it'll come out in the wash when we give you the numbers. Link, what type of deal was this? What type?
It ended up being a subject to deal, subject to a mortgage.
Okay. If you're brand new out there, and I'm sorry if you're not, and this is redundant, but subject to the mortgage means we bought this property. The mortgage stayed in the seller's name, is right now in the seller's name, and we pay every month, and we bought the property. It's in our LLC's name. Okay. The source of this was that student, but you know how he got it?
It was an expired listing.
All right. So I'm going to put student and expired. Okay. I forget if we did a term on this, or most of the times we don't. I just didn't know if we promised anything.
No, we didn't promise anything. This seller, it's a VA, so they'd kind of like to use their certificate in the future.
Okay.
Obviously we said we'd do our best, but made no guarantees at all.
Okay, so those of you watching, the beauty of most sub twos like this one is there is no clock ticking. So we can put a buyer in like you're going to learn. We did. We installed the buyer about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And towards the end of that, if they've kind of lived up to their standards, could we then pivot and maybe instead of sending them to the bank to cash it out, could we then own a finance them? Sure, we could, just to get you thinking out there.
Well, yeah, this one's got a low rate. It's got like a 4.35 or something. I mean, it had shifted up, but it was still a low rate compared to today.
Bingo. Okay, good thing you brought this up. So in markets, Denver's a good example, by the way, because of tech, employment-wise, tech's getting hit. And so that's another market that's going to have a little bit of a, they're feeling the market right now. There's a lot of markets like it, but they happen to be one of them. And there's a lot of homes out there like this that have rates 2.5 to 4.5. I don't know if you're going to see it like that in a long time. So these are good things to have on your plate. Okay, how much was owed, Link?
They owed $653,188.
$653,188, and there was no equity promise. We just bought it for the balance, correct?
That's correct. There was no equity promise. Bought it for the balance. They just didn't want to pay any closing costs, and had already moved out of state, and just couldn't stand the $3,200 a month payment on the house.
And I think 2 things here I want to say for disclosure, because we always disclose everything we do. I think we made this contingent upon a buyer. Did we not, first of all?
Actually, we didn't. We made it contingent upon a time frame, but not a buyer. I got 60 days before we started making a payment, but we didn't make it contingent upon a buyer.
Got it. So it worked that's why it worked better. Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
You can make some of these contingent upon a buyer. A lot of times it's sub twos, just for the viewer to know, they're under the gun, and that's why you can't make it subject to a buyer. So we bought time instead. And then full disclosure, I think in the end, Link, you negotiated with the seller to pay like a 1.5 mortgages before we took it over. And to this day, a month or 2 later, they haven't done that yet.
Right. Well, we ran into a couple things. We ran into a delay getting it closed because they had a payment they had due. And then we also ran into some stuff on an inspection that they hadn't disclosed that were obvious issues that we ended up, they agreed, you know what, I don't want to fix anything. I'll pay a half payment. So there was logic behind those 2 things, but I mean, that's kind of where it came from.
But
the other thing I don't want to skip over, Chris, something that's really important here is, yes, we agreed to make a payment in 60 days, but theoretically, we never have to pay this house off. It could be a rental property for the rest of its existence,
Right.
and all we have to do is make that monthly payment. Now, it's a little bit high of a monthly payment, so that's probably not the plan. But the point is the concept, the underlying mindset, or example, or scenario, or frame, or whatever word you want to use, we control this house now from now on.
Yeah. No, huge point. Huge point. And we'll talk about the buyer makeup in a minute. The little I know about it because Nick took care of it. We sold this at, it looks like 6,999.
That sounds right. Yes, sir.
6,999. All right. So interesting what Nick structured here. So Link and I will walk you through it as a viewer. And if you have questions, send them to support@smartrealestatecoach.com, or just come to the free Wicked Smart sit downs. We run them every Thursday on Zoom from 4 to 4:45, 4:50. They're free. Just come and say, hey, I saw the deal structure with Link and Chris, and I got these questions. And we'll probably remember the deal if you just reference some of the numbers. So deposit from the buyer. I'm looking at my notes. Nick structured a deposit right away of 50,000,
Mm-hmm.
but then he structured, it looks like 12,000 on or before March of 24, and we can comment about why that we do this on or before March of 24, and another 37,000, 37K on or before March of 25. Whoops, it's off the page, but so 12 and 37, the next two spring times. I imagine he did that probably because of the refund, tax refund.
Actually, a bonus and refund, both.
Okay, awesome. So good for the viewer to know, Link, right? That if you do this right, when you do this right, your February, March, or April, when you schedule the tax refund situation, you should have big first quarters because of that. I remember when we were at our peak of 60 to 70 properties in our family team, come February, March, April, you could be as high as a couple $100,000 in scheduled payday. So it's super important to know that as you structure these deals to go ahead and make your cash flow work like that very, very well.
Well, it makes the cash flow work, but it also it helps that buyer get in. It improves their opportunity, their chance to get into the house, which is ultimately what we all want. We want everybody to win. We want the seller to win by getting out from under the house. We love making money here and there, and then we want the buyers to be able to get a house that they can't currently qualify for. So everybody wins.
Right. So when they get to the end, the more down is going to put them in a better light. Might even give them a better rate. So yeah,
It'll give them better rate, better payment, more down, maybe eliminate PMI depending on the situation. Like there's a lot of things that will be going on in their favor as they increase the down payment.
Yep. Awesome. Good points. Okay. Link alluded to a fairly hefty payment, probably not on the size house, but the payment here is what? 3,225.13. 3,225.13. Now, Nick did something super interesting here. I do remember this part. Lincoln, chime in if you have anything else. But this buyer, I know, called Nick and said something to the effect, I know the exact house, like the floor plan, everything was a cookie cutter home in the same neighborhood that he used to live in or grew up in or something like that.
Yeah.
So he just fell in love with the house that I got to have it. So here's what we did. Whatever price Nick and Link were on at first, it was probably higher. What he ended up negotiating with the gentleman is to pay $10,000 up front. So in other words, he came to closing with this 50 and this 10. That's what he came to closing with. But you're going to see how we actually are in a negative cash flow because of that. Nick opted to give him 10,000 up front. And if he did, he'd discount the monthly payment to $2,650.10. I imagine the conversation was something like, hey, this is where I kind of wanted my payment to be. And to get that, Nick had him buy it down, almost like he would a rate, for 10 grand up front. So although this is a negative $3,800 over the course of the term, and again, Link said earlier, we could own this forever. We just used I think a 24-month term here, it looks like, Link.
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. We didn't nail that down, Chris, so I'm not certain, but I believe so, yes.
I'm pretty sure, because if that thing's negative, what, $400, $500, $600 times.
I think it was 36 months. I think it was 36 months.
Okay, so we can back the numbers out, whatever it was. And then you add the 10 grand to that, it's actually a positive 61.99.28. If all goes right to term, could be earlier, could be later, but we're just giving you an example because this is in progress right now with buyer inserted in home for only the first month.
Well, and let's go ahead and throw in the other caveat, Chris. We'd like to be honest with people. this buyer could fall through, and this is all non-refundable money they've paid us up front to live in the house for a period of time, to have the right to pay a rent. I mean, like that does happen occasionally. So, that's something else too.
Yeah. So I just got off a podcast earlier and I said, the gentleman said, "Oh, so I heard you guys actually care about the buyers and all that." And because a lot of people don't. I said, "Yeah, but we still default. People have life events. And we've had all this, by the way, death, divorce, COVID, like all that has happened to us, and it's going to happen to people. So you're going to be in the 2 to 5% default rate. You could be in some years. I was talking to Nick, depending on how many properties you have, you could be as high as 10%. It happens. People have life events. I don't care how good you are and how much you care about them. So good point. Okay, so the markup looks like roughly 46,000 and change, 46,700 and change. That's the markup, just so we can figure out payday 3 for the viewer.
Yep.
The principal pay down, they did use 24. I see it there. So the principal pay down is 1,320 a month on that underlying mortgage up here.
Yep.
Now, Link, just for them again, if you're familiar with an amortization schedule and you're watching this, obviously it's not fixed. Every single month, it might go 1320 today, and tomorrow, next month, 1322. Increases ever so slightly over the term. We use a fixed amount as of today of 1320 times 24 months, and that comes to 31,680. That's the benefit of the principal pay down. It's a link to your point earlier. If we do end up keeping this longer, that just continues to increase and pound down principal, which is nice. A nice part of our payday 3 model.
Yep.
Sweet. All right, then we got to give them credit. I got a question on Slack the other day, which is where all our associates camp out. And the student said, "Well, how do they get credit for their deposit? They paid all that 99K in. How do they get credit?" They get credit just like you would if you went out and bought a house tomorrow and you put down 100 grand on the settlement statement with your attorney in the closing, and you have a bank loan probably coming to the table, but you'd get credit for your 99 grand. Well, the buyer in this case does too. Just it's the closing at the end is just a regular closing. Okay, so the cash out, if you take the 46 grand markup and you add the principal, but you take away the money you basically got paid up front on this thing, you're negative $20,000 in payday 3. So what does that mean? That means at the very beginning of this deal, we stuck 20,000 roughly, 20,608, but I think we probably just did 20 in a separate account. Why? Because when this closes out, if it doesn't go further, that's going to be, we have to have that money available. Okay. So technically, whatever I give you for cash flow here is 20 less, but the real number at the end is an accurate number for all paydays. And what is that? Let's look at it, Lincoln, if you think of anything else. But we got 99 grand payday 1. We got a 61.90, almost $6,200 payday 2, and we got a negative payday 3. And that's going to put us right around 84.5. I think it's 591, 84,591. Yeah. Again, ballpark. Could it be less if it went sooner? Yes. Could it be way more if it goes longer and or if we own a finance? Of course. Any other nuances that you can think of that we want to share with these guys, Link, besides we gave them kind of the good and the bad, right?
No, not really. The biggest thing is we always, when we look at deals, we look at expensive houses and we look at intelligent people and tend to go, well, gosh, they wouldn't do this. This lady's a master's prepared nurse. I mean, she makes $150,000 a year as a white collar professional employee. I mean, she's an intelligent seller, and she just wanted to be done. She didn't care about the numbers. She just wanted to be finished. She had moved to Florida and wanted to be done. Same thing with like high-end houses. High-end houses, sellers see them as assets. They don't see them as their old family home. So, both of those things that associates tend to be a little fearful of actually aren't really relevant at all. And I just can't stress that enough when you're looking at a $700,000 house. Oh, they wouldn't do this. You don't know who will do it until we ask. Like, what's their problem? Can we help them? And that's what we need to figure out.
Yeah, and same on the buyer end, right? That's what
Yep.
Nick specializes in. Like, they went through a divorce. I don't know this gentleman, but I went through a divorce, or I had a job change, or I started my own business, or COVID, whatever. So we're just there to help. And what's really cool is a healthy relationship, to Link's point. We could just piece that together. We're the liaison. We happen to be the owners of the property. That's all. Link, appreciate you, buddy. Exactly. As always, were you going to add something? Sorry.
No. I was just going to say I'm happy to be here. I like to throw out the little nuances because they do make all the deals different. I mean, it's really important to understand that until we find out what the problem is, we can't help them. And so that's
Yep.
the biggest challenge we face.
Yeah, and so if you want to hang out with Link and or Link is often and I'm often on the Wicked Smart sit down that I told you about earlier. If you're on our list, you're getting a text or an email. If you're not, just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/events and you can check out how we run those and how to get on them. They're just on Zoom as far as the weekly sit downs. We do have live events. If you haven't caught that on the channel, or if you're new, twice a year, live events. QLSlive.com is going to be your fall event. And wickedsmartsummit.com is going to be your spring event. And again, Link and I will be there. The team will be there. The family will be there. Link, thanks again, buddy. Make it a great week.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chris.